Yeah, welcome. Thank you for joining the Rise podcast. Quasi Millington here. I'm here with Leo Coronel today. Do you want me to go full name, Leonard or Leo? Who do you want me to do?
I go by Leo. Leonard, there's a whole story behind Leonard, but just call me Leo. I'll
Okay,
get into
okay.
that story a different day.
Leo Coronel. And so instead of today reading a formal introduction, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and kind of tell me who you are. I put in the bio that you're a personal finance coach, but there's so much more to you, and we're going to get
Yeah,
into a bit of that. So just explain a bit of your background, who you are, and yeah.
sure, no problem. Look, so firstborn generation Canadian. My parents, Santiago and Maria Cornell, immigrated from Ecuador in the early, well, I would say mid 70s. Okay. First of three, I'm the eldest of three kids. I think my sister, Jennifer, Kristen, I can see my sister on the call right there. My
Okay,
boy Dave, yeah. Omar probably on there too.
yeah.
And you know what? My parents are hardworking people. Mom came. She didn't speak English. She has a story on her own, which a lot of immigrant parents have. And she hustled, she struggled, she worked as a nanny. My dad he did know the second language. He was a trades guy. So when they came here, they actually met over here. So we got two people from Ecuador leaving Ecuador and actually meeting over here, right, through the community.
Oh, nice.
And my mom struggled. She was actually illegal for a little bit. I think most people on the call don't know that. But her meeting my dad, they fell in love, had me, and the government let her stay. It's a true story. They let her stay, and they started to build a life together. So, I mean, fast forward, my dad started his own business, which plays a part in my story because he left a seed in my head always to kind of work for myself,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. Because I grew
Yeah.
up, it wasn't a traditional home, 9 to 5s, but he had his own business, and I always saw him making money outside of his job. And then he started his own business. We helped him out with that. And you know what? I always knew that you have to create your own economy, right? You have to build something for yourself. He taught me that indirectly, right? So that always stayed with me. Anyways, fast forward, went to school. I'm kind of a creative guy by nature, and some people on the call know me already. And I wanted to get into graphic design. So my vision, my friend, was to be a multimedia designer, have my own agency, take whatever my dad taught me, obviously some of the stuff my mom taught me, and then just build something, right? But that obviously never came to be because it was in 2006, yeah, no, actually 2002, my parents, they got to the point where my mom was like, look, I can't be in this relationship anymore. My dad, smart guy, smart guy. He had a lot of great habits. And honestly, looking back, let me say my late father, because he passed away in 2010. Um, so much, thanks, brother. So much potential. I think it's lost potential, but he ultimately lost the bout with alcoholism.
Okay.
And it got to the point where mom was like, enough's enough. We got to sell the place. And next thing you know, I had to step in and take over, being the eldest of three kids. So when I took over and started dealing with the mortgage and all that stuff, I really had to grow up quickly, man. And that's where everything started. All right. And that's what introduced me to the financial world, right? Because I was in a point in my life where I was needed some guidance, was frustrated. I realized that everything is on my shoulders, and I had to figure this stuff out, right? I was freaked out. I didn't know what I was signing, and I just needed somebody to coach me. Sorry, bro, I couldn't hear you.
How old were you at the time?
26 years old. Oh, sorry, 24 years old when that happened.
Okay. And you have to take care
20,
of the whole family, and you don't even have your career set yet. So how did you handle that?
oh man, now looking back, it was just like a tidal wave coming at me. But one thing I kind of pat myself on the back with is that I always go into like problem solving mode, right? So when we moved into the new place, we sold the old place, signed the mortgage. I'm just kind of dealing with all this stuff and I had to figure it out. My initial reaction was like, this is too much house for us. Let's rent out the basement, right? Let's fix it up. Let's get somebody to somebody that we know that can put up walls and whatnot. So I already was thinking, how can we, recoup and make this some type of rental income or something, right? Just because it was too much house, right? And looking at my mom, who was emotionally unstable, looking at my brother, my sister, looking up at me, it's just like, you got to step up, man. You got to step up because everything is on your shoulders, so you have no choice. The way I look at it is like my backup was against the wall. I didn't want to show that I was scared. I didn't want to show that I didn't know what we were doing. They just needed to be somebody in control, right? Think about it. Like, you're on a plane. Imagine if the captain is freaking out,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
You need them to be calm, right? You say, okay,
Yeah, man.
we're gonna ride through the turbulence, and we're gonna be good.
So
Yeah,
that was my mentality, and I wasn't even looking at my age. I mean, looking back, I feel like it did set me back, but those are just the cards that were dealt with, man. Right?
yeah, yeah. So when you talk about the fact that your back's up against the wall and you figure things out, I think a lot of times people don't realize how resourceful you can be until you have to be,
Yeah.
right? So talk to me about like where you were and advice to people that maybe are at the point, because we're in this crazy time we're in, we're going to lock down again, and a lot of people feel like they're at their wits end, right? So
True.
hang on when you feel like everything's up against you.
For me, it was a lot of I journalized a lot of things. Number one, and number two, I look for mentors. I look for guidance,
Mm,
specifically. Look for guidance. People that were cool-headed, people that I trusted. There was only a few people in my circle, honestly. There was like three people. Like my father-in-law was one of them. Um, the gentleman who actually was the advisor that ended up becoming a really good friend of mine, like an older brother figure, mentor, the godfather of my kids. He's another person I leaned on. So I had people in my circle that I needed. You don't want to keep the problems to yourself. You got to look for help, right? Put the ego to the side and look for help if you can't figure things out on your own. And ultimately, it was those people that put me in the position, in the path to get out of that mess, man.
okay, okay. And so you got into the financial industry. How did that happen?
Yeah, interesting, because that's something that never really interested me. It was only out of necessity and try to figure things out, starting with the mortgage, right? And I'm like, looking back, I felt really frustrated that nobody took the time to explain to me what I was signing, right?
Mm,
Nobody took the time to say, Mr. Coronel, do you understand how this works? The amortization, like interest rate. I was just signing papers, right? Completely trusting the person on the other side. And it was after the dust settled, we're like, I got a $365,000 liability on my shoulder, like, and it's tied to me and my brother, because me and my brother were on title, right? And I started to seek out somebody that can teach me this stuff. And it was actually my accountant who I thought of. I'm like, do you know somebody that can break this stuff down? Unbiased, an advisor, I'll pay for his time, I don't care. And he actually did know somebody. He referred a gentleman by the name of Robert. And I didn't know Robert, Middle Eastern guy from, from Kuwait, immigrant, comes over. But the only reason he came into my place was because of the trust that I had with my accountant, right? I go, if you trust him, I don't care where he's from, you trust him, send him to my place. At that meeting was my mom, my brother, my sister, and my girlfriend at the time. She wasn't my fiance yet, but she ultimately became my wife. And we sat down, and he just like, let's, before we get into the mortgage and I help you with your own personal stuff, let me teach you how money works. And honestly, I'll never forget that line, because we spent like a good 2.5 hours. He just educated me on, the RSP, TFSA, debt, mortgage, mortgage insurance, where I was just kind of blown away that he just taught me so much in 2 hours that in my whole schooling year or dealing with the banks, I was never taught, right? So
yeah,
that piqued my interest. And it was after, we set up some plans, we got insurance, everything that was right for us. We refinanced, opened up some cash flow. And then it was building the relationship with Robert. I built that relationship with Robert real strong. It was about for a year and a half that he was an advisor. I was the client. Once we built that strong relationship, then I really started to think about getting my licenses. And it was only after having that discussion with him and seeing him and building that bond, and I'm seeing him succeed, and he's just living a life that I wish, that I wanted to live.
yeah, yeah.
But ultimately, it was the trust that I had with him in that bond, that when I reached the point where I was going to get married, that he's like, what are you doing with your life, man? Like, and you need people in your life to kind of give you that mirror. Like, what are you doing? Honestly, what do
Yeah,
you want? What do you want to achieve? And just have you questioning yourself, right? And he was that person. God bless him. And he had me questioning myself and what I want to achieve in life. And he's like, can you achieve those goals with what you're currently doing right now? And I'm like, hell no, man. He goes, okay, you saw how we helped your family. There's a lot of people out there that need this type of education. I'm going to teach you the business side of what we do. So the trust, the relationship, that's when I decided, okay, let me start going for my licenses. And because the client, the belief was there. He helped out my family. Right after that, if I can add, because I was just kind of looking at it as let me just take it as a side hustle, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
right? The passion wasn't there. It was actually after my wife dealt with a bout with cancer, right?
Okay.
So we got married. I was going for my licenses, and this is where adversity starts to hit you, man. I don't know if you've experienced this yourself, but when you're on a path, it's kind of like
Yeah.
you have this invisible man throwing things at you, right?
Yeah.
And my wife, we get married in 2006. She gets diagnosed with cancer 3 months after, and then I start to realize if it wasn't for Robert coming in and you know showing us the value of insurance, for example, my wife wouldn't have been protected because she was at that meeting and she
Mhm.
got that insurance coverage a year and a half after a year she gets diagnosed, right? Which made that meeting extra powerful. And I started to realize, wow, man, this is a big deal. If like my family almost fell through the cracks if it hadn't been for Robert showing us the value doing his job properly, then she wouldn't have been protected. And it sent a ripple effect through my life, right? And then shortly after that, my dad passed away with no insurance, so I don't want my kids to go through the same stuff like that. And then my little guy, after having the blessing of having my kids, Tiago was born. Tiago was born in August of 2010 when my dad passed away January 24, 2010. Tiago was born the same year, and he was born with a disability or a certain condition, tuberous sclerosis, where he develops tumors on his major organs, right? It was pretty tough pill to swallow. You understand, from 2006 2010, it was just
You've had some things
adversity upon
happen.
adversity.
Yeah, you've had
Oh,
some things in
brother.
life. Um, yeah, and all the while you're still building this finance business and you're dealing with your family. And tell me, if I can just go back for a second before we talk more about
Yeah.
your family. Um, you said that Robert, was it, that
Mhm.
he taught you
Yeah.
things that you didn't know growing up. And so, like, I talk to a lot of
Yeah.
young kids about finance. Well, not about finance, about resilience in general. But
Yeah.
if your money's not right, you can't get all this other stuff right too, right? So
Correct. Yeah.
that's why I brought you on here, because I talk about resilience, but resilience starts with making sure everything is good financially. What are some of the things that we're not learning? You said you didn't know this growing up. You didn't know it in school.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that we should be learning in school, but we're not learning about finance?
I think we should be looking back, honestly, if there was a course on money management, number one, right? How to budget, right? Manage your money, manage your expenses, understand the tax system, right? Taxes is a huge thing. How to start a business, that should be a class, right? Whether if I want to be employed, I would like to know how I started a business, how to start a business, right? How credit works, right? That's another thing that I would say. Um, those are a few things off the top of my head, but what I realized looking back and seeing a lot of young people too, most of them, they overspend because it's easier to overspend now than before. Before we used to carry cash a lot. Now because you got the credit cards and the debit cards and everything is electronic, man. It's so easy to just money goes in. You don't see it anymore, right? Everything is just numbers.
Yeah,
So
I
it's so
remember
easy to spend above your
they
means, right?
credit card to my school actually when I was younger. That to you, as soon as I got first year university, as soon as I'm walking on campus, they're offering you credit cards right off the bat, and
Um,
really know much about spending on credit cards. I didn't go crazy with it, but at the same time, that was my introduction. Here's free money, right? You don't think, right?
exactly happened to me. I got 3 credit cards. I was already $1,000 in debt my first week of college, right?
Okay, okay, so you got the
You know,
same people coming up to you. So what do we learn beforehand? If we learn some of these things beforehand, how credit works and interest rates and the fact that you can be tied up and your minimum payment is not as the interest you're paying and that type of thing. Um, where would we start with having a course like that? Would it be an all-encompassing finance course, or do you need to start with the basics?
you got to start with the basics.
Yeah,
Everything is fundamentals, man, because nowadays we get bombarded with so much information. Quincy, we get bombarded with so much information. You're hearing Bitcoin, you're hearing cannabis stocks, you're hearing NFTs and Leo. So you can get easily caught up in the hype or the fear of missing out, right?
yeah.
And my response to that is just focus on the basics, man. Focus on the fundamentals. The
Yeah.
fundamentals.
Credit, understanding money system.
Yeah, that's it. Because I mean, if for credit, for example, you got to work on your credit because credit, that's that number that ultimately will get you that better rate that ultimately will get you that home or that car, right? That holds a lot of leverage, but we are not taught the importance of that, of just building your credit first and foremost, right?
Okay, okay. And you mentioned your dad when you were your dad didn't have insurance, and what's one or two of the things that you wish he taught you? I know we talked about it already, but what didn't he
Hmm.
teach you that really set you back until you learned it?
I think he never taught me to save my money. My dad was a big spender, a big time spender. He made great money. And the reason why I know that is because he would always buy the latest gadget, cars, clothes, and all that stuff. But he never once said, Leo, you got to put away money. You got to put away this. It was more my mother who was just socking away money. And he even used my money for, I'll never forget it. He showed me, I think I told you this story the last time we spoke. It was $8,000. They opened up an account for me, right? And they said, "Look, Leo, we got this for you." Leonardo, they call me Leonardo, right? We got this for you for your school. And I never saw that money again. And it was years after. I'm like, Mom, whatever happened to the money? My mom said that your dad used it to fund his business, right? With
Okay.
the hopes that he would recover, but it never came to be. So looking back, I wish my dad would have taught me, how to save, but he didn't know how to save, or more importantly, how to build a business or how to even start thinking of starting a business because he was already on that tip. Obviously, he had some advice, but he never took the time to teach us that. He just kind of like, work hard. You need money. I'm not going to give you 20 bucks, 100 bucks. I'd rather you come work with me at the shop and I'll show you. I was always with him at his like sales meetings and stuff like that. But he never kind of showed me the process or things like that, that encompassed, growing a business.
Yeah, yeah. And is that something that then you're going to do with your kids, right? You're going to teach them that.
Yeah.
You probably
I'm
already.
already, yeah, man, I'm on that tip already. Like I'm already having conversations. Like a few weeks ago, had a conversation with my daughter about the difference between an employee and a business owner, right? Being an employee and being a business owner. And owning a business, right? You go in a restaurant, is like, you know what? This is how much the waitress get paid. Actually, there's an owner who owns the establishment, and just kind of dissecting certain things so they understand the difference, right? They
Yeah,
understand the difference. And ultimately, it'll just lead to them one day to choosing their path, right?
yeah, yeah,
But for me, I'm going to instill a lot of what problem do you want to solve? What business do you want to create? Like work for somebody, get your credentials, learn a lot of the things while working for somebody. But I mean, the end game should be you should be creating your own thing. Try to solve some type of problem out there.
yeah. Okay. And that's what you're doing now, solving financial problems for people. Um, Now you mentioned that your wife got cancer. I'm glad that she's better. Um, Talk to me about just the challenge of dealing with that and how finances saved you. I know you said you had insurance for her, but she's still here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
you budgeting better at that time, and how did having that taken care of allow you to take care of your wife better?
You know what? Actually, it was pretty rough. To the contrary, we got ourselves into $100,000 worth of debt. All right.
Oh,
So the good news was she got coverage, meaning that we locked in her insurability because her condition makes her uninsurable. The bad news though is we never had any critical illness. For example, critical illness insurance will cover you, for cancer or stroke or heart attack. Nor did we have an emergency fund, right? We didn't have anything set aside in a bank account just in case, right? So I still had a mortgage to pay. I still had expenses to pay, and dealing with that set us back, I would say years because $100,000 worth of debt. I had to deplete our RSPs, not understanding the tax situation when you pull out RSPs. I
yeah,
depleted all our savings, and it was just tough. So I think it was after the dust settled that we really, I'm looking back in hindsight, we never want to repeat what we went through back then. Now, going forward, it's like learning from our mistakes. I think we're helping out people learning from our mistakes. Going back, there's no way we can change the past. But if you would ask me back then, I totally did not know how to manage my money. I feel like we were protected in the sense of life insurance, but through the other areas, man, we got hit really, really hard. Really, really hard. We did know though how to manage. So we pivoted and we just kind of manage our expenses and really kind of like on bare bones trying to figure things out. But we came out of
yeah.
there just kind of understanding our finances and managing things a lot better.
Okay. And she's well now. And
Yes.
what do you do now for people? specifically?
You know what? If I were to put it in a nutshell, help them understand and help them to create a financial foundation, right? Understand how finances work, where to begin, right? What's the next step? Like, what is the process? And ultimately, most people think financial planning is complicated when really it's not, right? Because there's so much, like I said, there's so much information out there, and hedge funds, and they're talking about the stock market, and it can get, derivatives are really high level, but let's just bring it down. And my role is just to coach people on just to get a hold of their finances, understand that money flows in like a business. Your home, you got to treat it like a business. Money flows in, you got to look at the cash flow. Where is our money going to? What is priority? Make sure you got a proper foundation protection, because your greatest asset is your ability to generate income. And it's sad when a lot of people don't even understand that basic, just having proper protection, and everything is built upon that. So I would say just coaching them on creating a strong financial foundation.
Okay. And I imagine the passion for that comes from the fact that you didn't have that growing up, and that's why you do it.
100%.
So who is your like ideal client? Like, who is the person that would most likely be working with you?
You know what? My clients vary, but good question. I think the people that I really enjoy working with are the ones that were in my shoes when I was pretty much at that point in my life, right? That are just kind of feel like they lost hope. Try going to the banks, and the bank's closing every door on them, because they're trying to get some money to get a bailout, but the bank's like, no, you're high risk, man. Where do I go? And then just drowning in debt and just not having any way to go. And those are my favorite clients to help, because I was there. I got out of the hole, so let me get you out of it, right? Let me get you a plan to get out of that debt. We'll go piece. I'll coach you how to get out of it, because I did it myself.
Okay. And if you were gonna teach, take me to the curriculum of you're teaching a high school course, or even, you know what, the school says, you know what, Leo, we want you to come in and give a workshop, or just a 2 or 3 day workshop on finances, and you have to teach the most important thing. What's the curriculum look
Yeah.
like for students?
That's a really good question,
I
man.
don't do that one
Uh,
actually.
yeah. That's a deep one. That's a deep one. But you know what would be in the curriculum for sure? Mindset, right? I would teach the cash flow quadrant. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
You
Quincy.
know, is that Kiyosaki or
That is Kiyosaki,
can you
Robert
explain that?
Kiyosaki.
Can you explain that?
Yes. So basically, it was a game changer for me, man. He breaks down the four ways we generate income, right? There's four quadrants.
Okay.
There's an employee quadrant, right?
Yeah.
As an employee, we get taxed obviously the most. It's really hard to become wealthy as an employee, right? You learn a lot of skills, and you're trading your time for money.
Yeah.
Right? You're trading your time for money, right? They pay the position, they don't pay the person. Okay.
Okay.
I got
They
it.
pay the
The
position, they
second,
don't pay the person.
yeah, man, yeah. So the next one is self-employed. The next quadrant is the S quadrant, the
Okay.
self-employed quadrant, right? And self-employed, it could be your lawyers, your doctors, your dentists. Now you control your time and you control your income, but it's all on you, right? It's all on you. You got to market, you got to deal with the accounting. And I was typically self-employed for a while. When I was a graphic designer, I was freelancing for a bit, right? But the hustle is on you. And if you don't show up and go to work, you don't get paid, right? But there's a difference. The third quadrant is a business owner, right? And as a business owner, now you have a system, right? Franchise is a great example of a system. You plug in, you turn the key, you got people working for you. As a business owner, you can step away, and the business still generates you income, whether you're there or not, right? And that's where your wealth really starts to grow. And then the last quadrant is investor quadrant, and that's where you got money working for you, my friend, right?
Okay.
So when I came across that, I'm like, this is like a game changer. I had no idea this existed, but now I knew where I needed to be. I needed to be on the side of the quadrant, which was business owner or investor, right? A lot of people yeah, man.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because a lot of times people will they will call themselves self-employed owning a business. So
Mhm.
they're mixing the two terms together, but it's two different
Yeah,
terms. So,
correct.
so there's a difference between being self-employed and being a business owner. Because a lot of
Correct.
I've heard
Yes.
that before, right? People will say, "I own my own business. I'm self-employed." Well,
Yeah.
according to the quadrants, that's two different things. So the business owner means money's coming in to you whether you're there or not, or explain that for
Correct.
so people don't get that confused, myself included.
Yeah, well, I mean, what would be a great example of that? It would be a franchise, right? Okay, so actually, let me take a step back. Let me use an example of myself. Okay, so I could have been a graphic designer, right, working for an agency, right, and get benefits, paid by the hour. Could possibly making six figures, but understand as an employee making six figures, I'm going to get taxed a good chunk. The more you make, the more you get taxed. We all know that, right? And that's something. If you don't know that, you got to know that.
Yeah.
As a graphic designer, then I decided, you know what? Let me do my own thing on the side, right? So where I moved into self-employment. So now I can bring in all the projects and the contracts and all that stuff, right? I can work 7 days a week, still make six figures, right? And actually benefit more that way because I can write off a lot of things as a
Great
self-employed
investor.
person.
Okay.
Yes. Well, yeah, keep my money in my pocket because I could write off a lot of things.
Yeah.
Now, a business owner would be me thinking, okay, well, let me hire some designers, right? Let me
Okay.
hire some designers. Let me hire a team, and then I start to like build my business. So let's say I'll bring in a project. I'll sign the contract. I got my designers. I got maybe my marketing or accountant, somebody who does the accounting. But my point is, I have a team there. I'm creating now a system,
Mm-hmm.
right? When I create a system, now think about it, man. I can take a week off, go on vacation. My business is still running. Projects are still coming in. They're still pumping it out. Maybe I'm communicating with my team. Maybe I got somebody leading a project manager that I've hired, right? So I can get it to the point where I can get it systematized that I can now start to scale it, duplicate it, right? Leo's agency, get it to
Okay.
the point where, and then you know what? Create another location, and then that's how you exponentially grow, right? Does it make sense?
Yeah, yeah. No, and then you're a business owner,
Yeah.
so you have people that you teach processes to that they can do without you,
Yes.
right? So you can step away, and
That's
then
it, my man. That's it.
taking that and maybe buying another business that generates income, or buying stocks, or rental property, these types of things. Or tell me what investment is the fourth quadrant.
So the fourth quadrant is now let's say my business is thriving, money's
Yeah.
flowing in, right? I can reinvest in the business or I can get into other businesses, right? Maybe startups, right? In the market, real estate, right? Money doesn't sleep. So, I mean, even if you look at the people that we know, the Oprahs, the Jay-Z's, and the Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan, all these guys make more money now, more than before when they were actually playing, right? I don't know if you knew this, but Kobe Bryant, the late Kobe Bryant, made more money as an investor. I think he invested in what's that body armor or something like that. He invested in a company that made him more money than all his years working as an NBA player. Right? Think
Okay.
about it. As an NBA player, you're basically an employee if you want to look at it that way, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The moment these
You're,
guys become
yeah, you're
investors,
yeah, yeah. Shaq owns like a bunch of Papa Johns and things like that, right? So,
yeah,
um,
yeah, man, Google this stuff, man. Yeah,
yeah. Okay, okay. So no, I thank you for explaining that to me because I read that book a long time ago, but I forgot about the quadrants. So
oh,
just to give people help as they go along, yeah, our goal is to be on the side of business owner and investor. But let's say you're finishing school and you have your career in mind, like you want to be a teacher, or you want to, work at a bank or something like that. How does someone that already kind of wants to work a job, what should they do if they're working 40 hours a week and they're trying to move up in the quadrant, but they have to keep their job, right, to pay their bills? What what
yeah.
what can they?
That was me. First of all, you got to really be good at time management. So the question is basically, if you're working for a company or working for somebody, but you're working on your side hustle, how do you?
Uh, oh yeah, yeah. Or you're thinking about, and maybe you don't even know what your side hustle is. Like, how do we go about? Okay, I'm just working a job, but I don't even have a side hustle yet. But I
Right,
listened to the I listened to this guy Leo who said that I still got to start moving up the quadrant. So what's my first step?
right. All right. I think you got to find out what you're passionate about first, what you love to do, right? I think we all have something that we love to do aside from our 9 to 5, right? If you love your 9 to 5, there's nothing wrong with that, man. You can move up, you can become an intra entrepreneur, right? So basically, somebody like that is working for somebody, but they are go-getters. They're thinking of ideas to move up to help the company grow, right? so you can actually move within the company up the ranks, right? You can learn a lot. A good suggestion here is talk to somebody. So let's just talk about somebody who's an employee right now, and they're really focused. Like you love banking, you love what you're doing. I would suggest, and I heard this a long time ago, and it makes sense. Go talk to somebody that's working there 20, 30 years, right, in what
Hmm.
you're doing.
Okay.
Talk
Okay.
to them, see what their life is like, see how much they're making, see if they're happy. And if you're cool with that, then boom, you got your goal. Go for it, right? Go for it. Make your connections, network, help the company grow, right?
Yeah.
But go talk to somebody.
That's
Go
that,
interview
that's
yourself.
that's even great
Sorry?
advice for students that are thinking about doing a job. And I gave advice that your advice is better, and I'm going to start doing it. I used to tell
Yeah,
high school students, like, if you want to do a job, you want to know what it's like, don't just jump into the job. That's what I did. I just jumped into to
yeah,
different jobs. Go find someone doing the job and say, okay, what's your day to day like? How is it? How is it for you? Then you
yeah,
can really sense if you want to do it. But I like your idea even better. Go to someone who's been doing it for decades and see what kind of life they built, because a lot of people that just start something are similarly naive, right? They're just getting into something, but if you know down the road, okay, that's the life I want to live. So thank you for that. Like, looking
yeah, bro.
far, saying, okay, do I want to be doing this 20 years from now? Let me look at the person doing it there. That's
Yes,
amazing.
man.
Yeah,
It'll save you
yeah.
so much time, man. It'll save you so much time.
Sorry, I was just coughing there. Um, so what happens to the person who they're doing something that maybe their parents want them to do? And you may have seen that, I don't know, in your community, that there's prestige for doing a certain career. And when you say owning your own business, I know that my parents were old fashioned. They're like working a
Yeah,
job, that, like, how do you explain that to old mindsets? You probably didn't have to do that because you just went into it, but
mm, yeah.
you probably know people that have family like that, right? You got to work a job. What are you starting your own business for?
Yeah, yeah. No, I got that with my family too, because I understand that most of them grew up in an industrial age way of thinking. You go to school, get good grades. You probably heard this before. Get good grades, get a good job, work for a good company, and get the pension because that's how they grew up, right? For me, yeah, I never had that. My parents kind of like left me to my own devices. But as soon as I got involved in self-employment and kind of trying to build my own stuff, my mom was like, "Well, how are you gonna?" Well, she couldn't understand. Like,
Yeah.
you need a steady check, right? You need a steady check. You need benefits. You need all that stuff. Like, don't worry, I've got it figured out. I got a plan. I'm not just jumping into it, right? You got to have a plan. If your parents want you to go a certain way, right, and you're doing it for your parents, that's the wrong approach. Ultimately, you're going to disappoint them. You're going to disappoint. You got to have that tough conversation. But be true to yourself, right? Because you can be doing something that your parents told you to do, and then down the road, you'll be living with that regret, not even trying it. You know what I'm saying? And you'll be resenting your parents for doing that. So if you're in that position, I say, you know what? Pull up your pants, bite the bullet and go for it. Go for your dreams, man. Your parents ultimately are coming from the point of love, right? They don't want you to get hurt. They don't want you to fall down. They don't want you to fail, right? So you got to understand that. But you're better off going for it, giving it a shot. If you fail, at least you'll learn from that. But at least you won't have that regret that you didn't try, right?
Yeah.
Like, hi, daddy. So
There we go. There
that's my
we go.
daughter. That's gotta be my dad. That's gotta be
Uh,
my daughter.
okay. Awesome. Awesome. Family session here. That's awesome. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, what was I going to ask? Oh, it's right at the top of my head. And
It'll come back
what,
to you.
that's what I wanted to ask you about. When you go to a job, you are told what to do, and you have your day planned out. You got to show up to a certain place, do a certain amount of work. When you are self-employed, it's on you, right? You're the one that makes the calls. You can sleep in if you want, but you don't make money. And for not only people that are self-employed, but for students that may be in school, or people that are in university, that they're not being pushed as much anymore because of this online environment. Um,
Mm,
in general, how do you stay motivated? I always talk about habits and getting into habits and systems on a
yes.
day-to-day basis. But what's your way of staying motivated when you don't necessarily have a boss pushing you?
Very good question, man. That's true because that was a struggle at the beginning, right? You're like, oh, I got the free time. You know, I can do things when I want to do things.
Yeah.
But it really comes down to with what you want out of life, right? So a couple of things. You got to be clear with what you want out of life, who you want to become, first of all, right? So once you have that definition of who you want to become and you're clear, then in my case, it was really kind of putting down a path of what I need to do. So let's just say I want to achieve a certain income goal or whatever. I got to lay down a blueprint pretty much of how I want to achieve it, right? What do I got to do? What are my disciplines? What are my habits? And I break it down to monthly, and I break it down to weekly, and I break it down to daily, because it ultimately comes down. Your success is dictated upon your habits, my friend. You know that already, right?
Yeah,
So
no,
what am I doing? What am I doing on a micro level to really get to that goal at the end, right? So I'm not so much worried about the final goal. I just really got to get better at focusing on my habits. I got a calendar, right? I structure my day, right? Because the worst thing is you come
okay.
out of bed, man. It's like, what do I do? You gotta pre-plan your day, pre-plan your week the night before. That's something it's a discipline that I had to develop, right? But if I didn't seek knowledge or seek people that were doing it already, because I asked the same question, how do you stay motivated, man? Well, I structure my day. I give myself things that I need to be doing the moment I get up, right?
Yeah,
The moment I get up.
yeah,
So you're not lost. So you're not wasting your time, right?
yeah. Yeah, I like that advice. The late Jim Rohn, he was a motivational speaker. He used to say, "Don't start the day until you have it finished. Don't start the week until you have it finished. Don't start the month until you have it finished." And so
Yes.
basically, out your month, and then when you go into your day, just like what you were saying, the day should be planned before you wake up in the morning. The week should be planned before you start Monday morning. The month should be planned before you get to the
Yeah.
first. And I
And I,
think that's
and I,
because it's not only applicable for adults, but I know that I've talked to a lot of students that are kind of, how do I stay motivated in this environment where you're stuck at home, you're not with your friends, and that type of thing. And the same thing can apply, right? Set yourself
yeah,
some things on a daily basis. I
correct,
think,
man.
yeah,
Correct. I mean, it's been, like, mind you, I'm not perfect by any uh, stretch of the means, right? But I deviate, but I always get back on track, right? If you're a student looking back, I probably structure my day on study time, take a break from the computer, maybe get some exercise. You know what? When are you going to
yeah,
eat? Some free time, just little things like that make a huge difference, right? So you're not kind of just floating and going
yeah.
wherever the
No,
wind takes you, right?
and I wanted to talk about that too. Self care. Self care is always something I always teach when it comes to being
Yes,
resilient. Because yeah, we want to
I
get
know
our
you do.
money
Yep.
right, get our business right, and everything like that. But what do you do to kind of step back, take a break if you feel overwhelmed? What's your self care?
Oh, you know what? I don't look at my phone. I don't look at my phone for the first half hour of the day, and I don't look at it for the last half hour. Honestly, man, that is a game
The
changer.
first,
That was the first and the last, right? The first and last. Now, how do I do that? Because I put it in a different room. We're so I mean, our phones are everything, right? We get up, the first thing we do, we got into that habit. We start to build that bad habit. And I just finished reading the Jay Shetty book. I don't know if you read it, man. Think Like a Monk.
yeah, yeah, I just finished that a couple months ago. Yeah, great book. Yeah,
Great book, man. Great book. And it's so true. You don't want to, you get up and you're just kind of like, you want to ease into the day, right? Ease into the day. You don't want to be looking at your phone and be like, oh, I got to deal with this. And you go on Instagram and news and all that stuff. So I get up, I don't look at my phone. I got to have, like, I guess, meditation prayer, right? I visualize the day because I already have it pre-planned.
yeah,
Have the appointment like today. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have a great conversation with Kwesi later on. I saw it already. Like I visualized my day. I'm picking up my kids. It's crazy, man, but it works. Like you visualize how your day is gonna be. Um, I try to get exercise. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Like right in the morning, but I gotta stick it in during the day somehow because I scheduled that in. I gotta at least get 4 sessions in. I started running too, um, and then I have my business stuff, and so I got the day planned out. So basically, mental. Get away from technology. Make sure you keep that a priority and you can stay focused and always pre-plan. Pre-plan so you have some direction.
okay, okay. I love that. I hope people are listening to that because that's super super key when it comes to your day. Not only pre planning it, but spend time away from electronics because it can get you lost. I don't know if you ever had that. You get the rabbit hole, right? You look at one
Yeah, man.
and then it suggests another, suggests another. All of a sudden, 3 hours have passed. So you can lose a lot.
Yeah,
And one thing I find, I don't know if you found the same because you have kids, the self-esteem tends to suffer sometimes when you look at people and you think, okay, everybody has this great life, whether it's money,
yeah,
body, women, whatever.
yeah,
People get caught up in feeling so bad about themselves too, and you don't want to start or end your day like that, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what? That's a really good point. You got to be really careful of what you're looking at, right? Who you following on social media, because it's all an algorithm. You like something, you share something, the program knows, and you usually get fed more of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So make sure you're feeding your mind and you're following people that uplift you, that inspire you, right? I find that's always helpful. Um,
Who are you following?
I'm following right off the top of my head. You know what? Ed Milet,
Mm,
Shetty.
yeah.
I follow uh, Patrick Bet David, Valuetainment,
Oh
or
yeah.
someone's off the top of my head. Man, these guys are really right. And then obviously through our Steve Holbrook is another one. There's so many, man. But once you go through that rabbit hole, it's like you get tied up to like, Gary Vee's another one. He's on a different tip, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Uh, yeah. So once the program and the algorithm knows, it'll just feed you more of that stuff. But you constantly got to be feeding yourself with good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Or else you're gonna be looking at like cat dancing videos and stuff
Yeah,
all
yeah.
day, right?
All kinds of stuff. Okay, okay. I appreciate you coming on here, man, because I want people to know not only about the resilience side, like how to build your mental, emotional health, but how to build your financial health too. Tell people how they can work with you, where they can find you, and yeah, how they can get started to get to know more about you.
You know what? I guess the best place to start would be just, follow me on Instagram. Hit me up with a DM. I'm on Facebook as well. We offer a lot, like me and my colleagues offer a lot of seminars or webinars every Wednesday on how to manage your money. If you follow me, you'll see the post. We'll post something once a week or something like that.
For
Um,
the
that's it.
portion, can you spell it out?
Sorry?
This is yeah, because this is audio too. Can you just spell it out for those who are
Oh,
just listening?
yeah. So yeah. At Leo Coronel, LeoCoronel _ T2 is my IG handle. Yeah, follow me. You give me a DM if you have any questions, right? But we always offer, and I'm always like, me and my office are always having some sessions on basic financial stuff, right? What's the difference between investments, life insurance 101. All right, yesterday we had an estate planning session, right? So stay in the know, all right?
Okay, okay, cool. Well, I'm super grateful that you came on and shared some of your time with me tonight. And I have some people I have to follow based on what you said, and I have to go study those four quadrants and go
Yeah,
back
man.
again. So much appreciated, Leo. Thank you for coming on. Any questions
No,
before?
no, dude, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. It's funny how certain people get connected through certain means, and we got connected through Alejandro, and I don't see it as an accident, right? So look
Yeah,
forward to connecting with you in the future, bro.
absolutely. Much blessing to you, man. All right. Have a good night,
Okay.
okay?
Lots of love, man.